He's a familiar face, isn't he? A steadfast presence in our wallets, a reminder of a pivotal era in Canadian history. Sir Wilfrid Laurier. For many, he's simply the Prime Minister on the $5 bill. But what truly shaped the vision of this influential leader? What were the unseen forces, the echoes of generations past, that contributed to his understanding of Canada and its potential?
Welcome back to How We Got Here Genealogy and our continuing exploration of the family trees of Canadian Prime Ministers. In this video, we turn our attention to Sir Wilfrid Laurier, a man whose long tenure and commitment to unity left an indelible mark on this nation. But to truly understand the national vision of Sir Wilfrid Laurier, we need to journey back through the generations, peel back the layers of time, and explore how his family, his ancestors, shaped the man we remember, the man on our $5 bill. The story of Sir Wilfrid Laurier, one of Canada's most influential prime ministers, begins in the small village of Saint-Lin, Quebec, where he was born on November 20th, 1841. He was the grandson of a soldier and the son of farmers with long established roots in the French-Canadian heartland. From a young age, Laurier displayed an exceptional intellect and the talent for oratory, qualities that would later define his political career. Laurier's father recognized his potential and ensured he received a good education. He attended the local school and then l'Assomption College, where he excelled in classical studies. This education provided him with strong foundation in law, rhetoric, and philosophy, shaping his intellectual development and honing his skills in debate and persuasion. Crucially for his future in a bilingual nation, he became fluent in both English and French, demonstrating an early ability to bridge cultural divides. After completing his studies at l'Assomption, Laurier pursued a law degree at McGill University in Montreal. He was called to the bar in 1864 and practiced law for several years, gaining valuable experience in argumentation and public speaking. However, Laurier's passion for politics soon drew him away from his legal career. Inspired by the liberal ideals of the time, he entered politics and was elected as a Liberal Member of Parliament for Drummond-Athabasca in 1874. He quickly gained recognition within the party and the House for his elegant speeches, his progressive ideas, and his ability to connect with people from different backgrounds. Even before becoming Prime Minister, Laurier championed principles of individual liberty, national unity, and economic development, laying the groundwork for his future leadership. His steady rise within the Liberal Party culminated in him becoming its leader in 1887, positioning him to lead the nation in a new century. Sir Wilfrid Laurier served as Canada's 7th Prime Minister for over 15 years, a period of significant growth and change for the young nation. Notably, he was the first French-Canadian Prime Minister, and his rise to power began the Liberal Party's long-held tradition of alternating between Anglophone and Francophone leaders. From navigating the complexities of French-English relations to fostering Western expansion, his leadership shaped much of the Canada we know today. He was a figure of great eloquence and a powerful advocate for Canadian unity. But beyond the well-documented political career lies a deeper story, the story of his roots, his family, and the generations that came before him. This video isn't just about his time in office, it's about understanding the foundations upon his national vision was built. I'll be delving into his ancestry, tracing the paths of his forebears, and to see how their lives and experiences might have influenced the man who would lead Canada into the 20th century. In my ongoing journey to understand the individuals who have shaped Canada and following my previous explorations into the family histories of John A. Macdonald and Brian Mulroney, I felt a compelling need to delve into the ancestry of Sir Wilfrid Laurier. His long and impactful tenure as Prime Minister, coupled with his unique position as the first French-Canadian to hold the office, makes his story particularly fascinating. Plus, it's another opportunity for me to take down my Wilfrid Laurier action figure and show him off. So, what were the formative influences, the familial threads that contributed to his remarkable political acumen and his vision for a unified Canada? It's this very question, this desire to connect the man to his roots, that propels us on his genealogical journey. Tracing the lives of individuals from centuries past is rarely a straightforward endeavor. The records can be fragmented, details can be lost to time, and connecting the dots across generations requires careful research and a degree of interpretation. As my guide for exploring Sir Wilfrid Laurier's ancestry, I'm using Wikitree, as they have done a great job in researching the family histories trees of Canadian Prime Ministers through their Canada project, which I'm a part of. However, like always when using another family tree as a starting point, it's crucial to remember to check the original sources whenever possible to verify the information presented. The challenge lies in sifting through the available data, acknowledging the limitations, and piecing together a narrative that is both informative and respectful of the individuals whose stories we're trying to uncover. So let's take a look how to do that as we look at Wilfrid Laurier's Wikitree page. Okay, so here we are on Wikitree. This is the Wikitree page for Wilfrid Laurier. As you'll see, it lists some Henry Charles Wilfrid Laurier because that is his full name. This is considered a notable, so it's a little different, has a few things that are not necessarily in every Wikitree biography, but his biography is pretty good there, and you see has his family over here on the right hand side. One thing though, it's when I looked at his wife, there's no biography there. There's some sources, as you can see, but there's no specific biography. So I want to add some biography. I know there's a few things I know about the Lauriers. One is they have a beautiful home in Ottawa. It's a part of the national parks. Years ago when I lived in Ottawa, I mean like 30 plus years ago, I visited there often because it was a place I enjoyed. So with the understanding that our journey into the past requires careful consideration of the available information, let's now turn our attention to the family tree of Sir Wilfrid Laurier. According to the research compiled on Wikitree, his ancestry traces back several generations in Quebec, with roots extending even further to France. To begin to understand the influence that shaped him, we need to start with his immediate family and then delve into some key ancestral lines that may have played a significant role in forming his values and worldview. Wilfrid Laurier was born Henri Charles Wilfrid Laurier on November 20th, 1841 in Saint-Lin-Laurentides, Quebec. His parents were Carolus, or rather Charles Laurier and Marcel Martineau. Now, Charles was a farmer and a surveyor by trade, but in addition to those two jobs, he also occupied positions as a mayor, justice of the peace, a militia lieutenant, and a school board member. This suggests a level of community involvement and literacy within the family. Now, Marcel's family also had deep roots in the region. Now, Wilfrid's early education was bilingual. Now, this is a significant factor that likely contributed to his later ability to bridge linguistic divides in Canada. He attended the village school and then College de l'Assomption. This exposure to both French and English cultures from a young age undoubtedly shaped his understanding of the complexities of Canadian identity. Now, did any of your ancestors in Canada come from a background where they spoke more than one language? How did that multilingualism shape their experiences or the family history that followed? Do you still speak the languages that they originally had? Share your stories in the comments below. So later in life, Laurier would pursue a career in law, a profession that demands strong communication skills and a deep understanding of societal structures. Could his upbringing in a community-minded family, coupled with his early bilingual education, have laid the groundwork for his future success in law and politics? These are the kinds of connections we'll be exploring as we delve deeper into his ancestry. While Laurier's political career was marked by his dedication to public service, his personal life also played a significant role. In 1868, he married Zoe Lafontaine. Their relationship was a source of strength and companionship for Laurier throughout his long and demanding career. Zoe was a cultured and intelligent woman who provided unwavering support to her husband. While they did not have any children, their home was known for its warmth and hospitalities. Theirs was a partnership of mutual respect and affection. Now, understanding their relationship provides valuable context to Laurier's life, showing us the personal foundation upon which his political achievements were built. Now, let's dig a little bit deeper into Sir Wilfrid Laurier's roots. Going back to his great-grandparents. His paternal great-grandparents were Charles Laurier and Marguerite Perron, and Jean Cousin and Marie-François Baudry. On his mother's side, they were Etienne Martineau and Marie Joseph Genevieve de Meuse and Louis Desmarais and Catherine Forrest. Looking at these names and the birthplaces provides Looking at these names and the birthplaces provided in the genealogical records, we can see that many of Laurier's ancestors were born in North America, specifically in what was then known as New France and Acadie. For instance, his paternal great-grandfather Charles Laurier was born in Lachannais, Canada, Nouvelle France in 1748, and his paternal great-grandmother Marguerite Perron was born in the same location in 1753. Similarly, on his mother's side, Etienne Marteau was born in St. Nicolas, Canada, Nouvelle France in 1735, and Catherine Forrest, his maternal great-grandmother, has an interesting birthplace in Beaubassin, Acadie, born in 1744. The fact that Catherine Forrest was born in Acadie means that her family would have been part of the distinct French-speaking colony that experienced a tumultuous history, marked by conflicts between France and Great Britain for control of the territory. Events like the expulsion of the Acadians or Le Grand Dérangement in the mid-18th century would have profoundly impacted the lives of many Acadian families, though we need further research to determine if Catherine's family was directly affected. Meanwhile, in New France, Laurier's other ancestors would have lived through significant periods of development and conflict, including the French and Indian War. In the North American field, they called it the 7 Years' War, which ultimately led to the British conquest of New France in 1763. These historical events would have shaped the social, political, and cultural landscape in which Laurier's ancestors lived and raised their families, undoubtedly leaving an imprint on generations that follow. Wilfrid Laurier's long tenure as Prime Minister was marked by his persistent efforts to foster unity within a diverse Canada. One of his key achievements was navigating the delicate balance between English and French Canada, advocating for compromise and mutual understanding. His famous quote, "Canada is free, and freedom is its nationality," encapsulates his vision of a nation built on individual liberties and a shared Canadian identity that transcended ethnic origins. He also championed westward expansion, encouraging migration and the development of the prairies, policies that would reshape the country's demographics and economy. Beyond internal unity, Laurier also had a clear vision for Canada's place in North America. He sought to assert Canada's autonomy both from Great Britain and the United States, advocating for a distinct Canadian path. While initially explored closer trade relations with the U.S., culminating in the 1911 election where free trade was a central issue, he ultimately faced defeat. His stance on this was complex, balancing the potential economic benefits with concerns about maintaining Canadian sovereignty and identity. Now, Laurier's influence extended beyond his time as Prime Minister. During World War I, although in opposition, his position on conscription deeply divided the country. While he supported the war effort, he opposed compulsory military service, arguing for a voluntary approach to recruitment. This stance, rooted in his Quebec background and a desire to maintain national unity, ultimately led to significant political fallout. So now let's consider potential ancestral influences on these core tenets of Laurier's political philosophy. We noted earlier that Laurier himself was bilingual from a young age, a direct influence from his upbringing in Quebec. Looking back at his ancestry, we see generations of families living in a land where French and later British cultures intersected. While we don't have specific details on every ancestor's linguistic abilities or their direct interactions with other linguistic groups, the very fabric of Quebec society during their lives would have involved navigating these realities. Could his long history of living in a bilingual and bicultural environment, even at a local level, have contributed to Laurier's sensitivity and skill in managing English-French relations on a national scene? Furthermore, the experience of his ancestors in Acadie, particularly those of Catherine Forrest's family, living through periods of conflict and displacement, might have instilled a deep understanding of the fragility of peace and the importance of finding ways for different groups to coexist within a shared territory. While we need more specific details about their direct experiences during the expulsion, the historical context suggests a resilience and a need to adapt to changing political landscapes. Could his ancestral background have indirectly shaped his commitment to building a stable and unified Canada, capable of asserting its own identity in the face of external pressures, even when it came to difficult decisions like those surrounding conscription? Finally, it's fascinating to contrast Laurier's vision of a strong, independent Canada with the potential perspectives of his early ancestors. Those living in New France or Acadie would have had a very different sense of the future, perhaps focused on the survival of their communities within French colonial system. They likely didn't envision Canada as a self-governing nation. Considering the actual future of Canada, Laurier's vision largely came to fruition. Though the country continues to evolve in its relationship with the U.S. and the world, these are intriguing questions that arise when we connect Laurier's vision to the lives of his ancestors. As the 20th century dawned, the political landscape in Canada began to shift, and the unifying forces that Laurier had so carefully cultivated faced increasing strain. The issue of Canada's role in the British Empire became a major point of contention, particularly the Boer War at the turn of the century and later the lead up to World War I. English Canadians often held strong imperialist sentiments, while many French Canadians felt a weaker connection to Britain and were weary of being drawn into its conflicts. Laurier's attempts to compromise, seeking a middle ground that would appease both sides, often led him open to criticism from both camps. The rise of industrialization also brought its own set of challenges, with labor unrest and economic disparities creating social tensions. Simultaneously, in Quebec, a growing sense of French-Canadian nationalism presented another complex dynamic Laurier had to navigate. His vision of a united Canada sometimes clashed with these regional and ethnic aspirations. The outbreak of World War I cast a long shadow over Wilfrid Laurier's later years. Despite being in opposition, he initially supported Canada's involvement alongside Great Britain. However, as the war dragged on and casualties mounted, the question of conscription ignited a firestorm of division across the country. Laurier, deeply rooted in his Quebec heritage and ever mindful of the delicate balance between English and French, strongly opposed compulsory military service. He advocated for voluntary enlistment, fearing that conscription would further alienate Quebec and fracture the national unity he had so painstakingly tried to build. This stance might have been influenced by the historical experiences of his ancestors. Consider his maternal great-grandmother, Catherine Forrest, born in Acadie. Her family, like many Acadians, lived through generations of conflict between France and Great Britain for the control of the land. The expulsion of the Acadians, Le Grand Dérangement, in the mid-18th century, forcibly displacing thousands, causing immense suffering and a deep-seated wariness of external conflicts imposed upon them. This history for displacement and the potential for cultural destruction might have resonated with Laurier's concern that conscription could tear apart the fabric of French-Canadian society. Furthermore, Laurier's ancestors in New France lived through the French and Indian War, a conflict that ultimately led to British conquest. While they weren't forcibly expelled in the same way as the Acadians, they experienced the upheaval of war, the loss of their political and cultural dominance, and the need to adapt to a new ruling power. This historical context might have instilled a cautious approach to large-scale conflicts driven by imperial powers. Laurier's consistent emphasis on Canadian unity and autonomy would also be seen as a long-term response to these historical experiences. His ancestors lived through periods where their identity and the way of life were threatened by external forces. His opposition to conscription, while framed in terms of national unity in his time, might have also echoed a deeper inherited understanding of the potential conflict to devastate communities and undermine cultural identity. A lesson perhaps learned through the stories and histories passed down through his family from Acadie and New France. His stance, while principled, placed him at odds with many in English Canada who felt conscription was necessary for the war effort. The 1917 election became a referendum on the issue, and Laurier's Liberal Party suffered a crushing defeat to the Unionist government, which strongly supported conscription. The loss was more than just a political setback for Laurier. It represented a profound failure to maintain the unity he so cherished. The nation was fractured along linguistic and regional lines in a way that threatened his very vision for Canada. The dream of a harmonious, unified nation, carefully nurtured over decades, seemed to be slipping away. For Laurier, perhaps this was the deepest gut. The moment when he had to strive for appeared to be at lost. A loss perhaps amplified by the echoes of his ancestors' struggles with conflicts and displacement. The aftermath of the 1917 election left a deep wound on the Canadian psyche. The nation was fractured and the path forward seems uncertain. For Laurier, this was a time of profound reflection. He dedicated his life to building a united and harmonious Canada, a nation that could transcend its linguistic and cultural divides. Now, in his later years, he was forced to confront the possibility that his dream might be unattainable. Perhaps in these moments of doubt, Laurier reflected on the stories of his ancestors. He might have thought of the Acadians, like Catherine Forrest's family, who endured the trauma of displacement and loss, yet persevered. He might have considered the resilience of those who lived through the upheaval of the conquest of New France, adapting to a new reality while striving to maintain their identity. These ancestral experiences woven into the fabric of his being might have provided a source of strength and perspective. They were a reminder that even in the darkest of times, communities can endure, and identities can survive. They might have fueled a renewed commitment to the idea that even if his vision was challenged, the struggle for a united Canada was still worth fighting for. This period was not a moment of complete despair for Laurier, but rather a time of deep reflection and a re-engagement with the historical forces that shaped him. It was a time to draw strength from the past as he contemplated the future of the nation he loved. Despite the setback of the 1917 election, Wilfrid Laurier did not abandon his vision for Canada. The moment of profound loss did not signify the end of his commitment, but rather a catalyst for renewed dedication to his core principles. Perhaps reflecting on the resilience of his ancestors, those who survived displacement and conquest, Laurier found a renewed sense of purpose. He understood that the struggle for unity and understanding was an ongoing process and spanning generations. The lessons of the past became a source of strength for the challenges of the present. The experiences of the Acadians who maintained their identity despite immense pressure, and the perseverance of the early French Canadians in adapting to a new political reality would have reinforced the idea that cultural identity and community bonds could endure even through periods of great strife. Laurier may have drawn inspiration from this, recognizing that the divisions of his time, while painful, were not unsurmountable. This turning point for Laurier was not about finding a new goal, but about reaffirming his lifelong commitment to the idea of a united Canada built on mutual respect and understanding. He continued to speak in and to write and to engage in dialogue and to advocate for the values he believed in, even from outside the seat of power. His renewed purpose was to ensure that the vision of a unified Canada remained alive, to nurture the seeds of understanding for future generations, and to trust that the lessons of the past could guide the nation towards a more harmonious future. The true culmination of Laurier's story unfolds over the decades that followed his life, and even with what we are experiencing in Canada today. It's the ongoing narrative of Canada grappling with the very issues he wrestled with: unity, identity, and the balance between different cultures and regions. Laurier's vision of a united Canada was not a simple or easily achieved goal. The tensions between English and French Canada continued to shape the nation's political landscape, sometimes erupting into crises that threatened to tear the country apart. Yet his emphasis on dialogue, compromise, and mutual respect provided a framework for navigating these challenges. The resilience of the Acadian and early French Canadian communities serves as a powerful metaphor for Canada's own journey. Despite facing adversity, both cultural groups persisted, adapted, and contributed to the rich tapestry of Canadian identity. Laurier's understanding of his historical resilience likely informed his belief that Canada too could overcome its internal divisions. Laurier's legacy is complex and multifaceted. He is remembered as a champion of Canadian unity, but also as a figure who faced significant challenges and whose vision was not always fully realized. Yet his enduring influence on Canadian political discourse is undeniable. He instilled a sense of Canadian identity that transcended ethnic origins and laid the groundwork for a more autonomous and self-assured nation. The ending of Laurier's story is not a neatly tied-up conclusion. It's an ongoing process of negotiation, adaptation, and growth. His vision continues to be both a source of inspiration and a reminder of the challenges that Canada must constantly strive to overcome. But ultimately, it is a story of hope, resilience, and the enduring power of a dream to shape a nation's identity.
From humble roots, a vision for a nation. From the currency we hold, to the history he shaped. The Canada he dreamed of. A tapestry of many voices, continuing to weave its story. The branches of his family, the roots of his vision.
And that's the story of how Sir Wilfrid Laurier's ancestral roots helped shape his vision for Canada. The echoes of the past, the struggles, and the triumphs of his forebears all contributed to the man who led Canada into the 20th century. Now, up next, YouTube thinks you will find this video particularly interesting, so be sure to give it a watch. And for a deeper dive into the lives and legacies of Canada's Prime Ministers, you'll find a wealth of information in this playlist. Remember, every family has a story to tell, and every story is worth exploring. So keep searching for your ancestors, and have a great day.